Morning everybody, back again this week. So on the couch this week I am going to be chatting to Amy Crawford from the Holistic Ingredient. So I met Amy via the gram, I don't even know how long ago, but years ago, before I had Grace, so over 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. And I will just try and add her in so that we can actually have a chat. So let's try that. Always very professional here. Let's see, invite, let's see how we go. All right, so I'll try and grab her in. And we're going to be talking about lots of different things. So I'll let Amy tell you guys a little bit more about herself, but she has sort of come from a background of the corporate world, left the corporate world and kind of went into the holistic health space. And what's some random things today? Look at this, amazing.
This is the first time for me.
I know,
First time.
you've done very well.
Can you hear me all right?
I can. Do you have a set of earphones at all handy?
I do. Can you just give me a moment?
Thank you. Just hop out of your office. I'll just do some interpretive dance here while I'm waiting. Sing some songs. Now I can't hear you at all. Zero. I've got zero audio.
Hello.
Oh yeah, there you go. You're back.
Hear me?
Yes, much better.
All right, I'm back.
Awesome. So I was just saying, I met you via the gram like many moons ago, and I don't even really understand how we connected or why we connected. I can't really remember. Do you? Maybe it was one of your kids' books.
No, but it was. I don't know, but we were early adopters. I reckon it was probably 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, back in the day when not everyone was taking photos of the food that they're eating.
I know, and now if you don't take a photo of it, did you even eat it?
Yeah.
If you didn't take a photo of it, did you even eat it?
Yeah. Though I must say I've been growing a little bit tired of taking photos of my food and instead just enjoying cooking it and eating it.
Novel, isn't it? Very novel.
It is. I know.
So, to start off with, I'd like to know what you had for breakfast today.
Oh, yes, I think you'll be happy with what I had for breakfast. I had the most beautiful chocolate granola. It was so delicious, chocolatey, crunchy, like raw cacao, something or other. Topped with beautiful vanilla coconut yogurt,
Yum.
coconut and almond milk, blueberries and strawberries.
Yum!
And a strong 3/4 soy latte.
Soy. Is soy your milk of choice?
Only for my coffee. Yeah.
Only for your coffee. And any particular
Only for my coffee.
why soy?
Just taste. Yeah. I've been mindful of not wanting to have too much soy in my diet. So this is it. I stick to this one a day, three quarters full. So I get it extra strong.
Yep.
I'm milk intolerant, dairy intolerant. So that's probably why I go to the soy, but the almond and the coconut milk it's just not the same.
Have you tried making your own coconut milk? Because I felt the same until I made my own coconut milk. And
put it in coffee.
Yeah. So coconut cream, so a tin of a yam coconut cream in a 750ml bottle, and then fill the rest with filtered water, shake it up, put it in the fridge. So creamy, so delicious. No weird fillers. Yes. I find that the best, actually, because I'm not into...
So you make your own coffee though?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, see, I will never make my own coffee. And that's a necessity for a woman who lives alone and works from home.
You need to get out of the house
in order to go out and connect with humans. Some days my barista's the only person I see.
Yes, it's interesting, isn't it? I think working from home or having an online business can be incredibly socially isolating, and I think people always think it's so wonderful, it's so glamorous, you can work from your pajamas, and you can, but you could also potentially not speak to actual people, for a week, 2 weeks, a very long period of time.
Yeah. And you sort of just, the older I get, the longer, I mean, I've been doing it for 7 years now. And there are days where I really have to make an effort to get out of the house.
Yeah.
I'm like, for a while I probably got a bit lazy and I'd sit around in my active wear all day, and now I actually find, and I'm sure lots of people would agree with this, that if I am dressed, lipstick on, ready to go, I'm so much more productive.
Yeah.
So there's sort of little habits that I've learnt that I need to do to sort of keep focused and productive.
And
but I love it.
And go and visit your barista so you can get out of the
Yeah.
house.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Well, I usually keep it as a general rule that I only have one coffee a day, because more than one actually makes me feel quite like anxious and nervy, and I tend to shit myself, so that's also not great. And just as an overshare, I've had 3 today, and because I had one this morning, and then I had to go and do something, and I was at a coffee shop, and I thought I'll just grab a small coffee, and then a friend of mine was here from Melbourne actually, and he's like, "What are you doing this morning?" I was like, "Oh, I'm just I've got time for a quick coffee, and then I've got to get home." So I've had 3 coffees today, which is pretty much half my weekly quota of coffee. So I could start talking like a complete speed freak and getting all jittery. So if I do, maybe just like throw some lavender piece through the phone.
Yeah, well, I'm organised.
I did actually put lavender piece on my hands and start inhaling it beforehand just to try.
Yeah, actually, that would be a good idea. Try that or vetiver. Vetiver on the list. Yeah, you need vetiver. It's like, so vetiver is like a sedative or a tranquilizer.
Amazing. So potentially I should get some of that for the kid. More appropriate than tasering her.
Yeah, straight on the back of the neck.
I like it.
Yeah, or just don't have 3 coffees, lady. That you're entering dangerous effing territory right there.
I really am. I don't know why. It was like the second one I was kind of like, what are you doing? The third one I was like, I've just lost my mind today. What am I even doing? Anyway, bizarre. Yeah. Can I get you to just give people a bit of an idea of where you have sort of come from and how you even came into this health and wellness space?
Yes, I would be delighted to do that. So I come from corporate. So I had 18 years in the corporate industry. I was in recruitment for all of those years, and basically over that 18-year period, I was slowly getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and nobody could really work out what was going on. Around sort of the last couple of years of my recruitment career, I set up my own recruitment business, which was wonderful, except that probably for that 2-year period, I was really only there for half of that time. And eventually I was diagnosed with a chronic fatigue syndrome and a toxicity reading off the Richter scale, which is really quite frightening. So for those that don't understand chronic fatigue syndrome, it comes with a whole host of different symptoms, but one of those is just debilitating fatigue, such that some days I couldn't put my hands above my head to wash my hair. My brain function was terribly poor. I had insane sensitivity issues. I couldn't be with more than one person in a room at a time, and couldn't read and couldn't concentrate, and certainly couldn't exercise or work. So I went to Tassie to live with my parents for a year, which was amazing to have that sort of support, but effectively really went there to detoxify my life and get my life back. And so I ended up, while I was down there, becoming really passionate about wellness, obviously. And I was so lucky because I've got an amazing integrative medicine doctor who said to me one day, the best advice he's ever given me was, you need to eat as though you're eating out of your backyard. If you can't grow the food you're eating in your backyard, you're not to eat it. So, I mean, it's not like I'm about to grow a salmon in my backyard or a cow in my little suburban home, but you get my drift. Yep. So that became, and for me, that removed all overwhelm. And so, I got a Thermomix, and then I just started getting really creative with the food. And over the course of the year, so I had to detoxify my life from every angle. So I turned around every container in my laundry, my kitchen, all my makeups, all my shampoos, my perfumes, anything you can think of that had any kind of toxicity in it, and it all had to go. So over the course of a year, I detoxified my life, and through a whole food diet and doing that and learning to meditate, learning to slow down, and then finally mastering my mindset, which was the clencher. I moved back to Melbourne with no idea what I wanted to do with my life, but I just had this newfound passion of, what the extraordinary power of food as an example. So I started to be a health coach. And then I set up an Instagram account And someone said, why don't you set up an Instagram account? And because at this time I still wasn't very well. I couldn't work full time for like 4 to 5 years. And I said, what on earth am I going to take photos of? And she said, I don't know, just take photos of the food that you eat or something. And I thought, oh, seriously, why is anyone going to be interested in that? But it was fascinating because all I was doing was taking photos of food that I was eating that was basically whole food that I'd turn into something delicious. So like, green, like hotcakes, green hotcakes, and normal banana hotcakes with spinach in them or something. But trying to make what other people might perceive as being kind of boring whole food into something that's delicious. And back then, as I said, not everybody was taking photos of the food that they were eating. And sort of over a few short months, I started getting thousands of followers. And it was extraordinary. And I'm like, flip, there must be something in this. And actually, the psychologist that I had for many years, as I was trying to struggle through my illness, looked at my Instagram account one day and said, you've got to do something with this. Like, there is so much, you have to do something with it. So I turned them into a series of recipe books. Yeah. And then because I'd also got really tired of having to type up all the recipes on Instagram. So I thought, oh, I've got to put this information somewhere. So then I set up the Holistic Ingredient, which is like an online wellness hub or a blog. And I started just writing because I love to write. So I thought, well, maybe I'll just start writing about what's got me well. So that's what I did. Started writing about that, started putting my recipes up. And then the real clincher, as I mentioned, was my mindset. So when I came back from Melbourne, there was definitely something that was kind of holding me back from becoming really, really well. And it was just this fear of never having a normal life and feeling really stuck and feeling not good enough and all this self-doubt. So I ended up becoming a Reiki master over all of this time because I became really passionate about energy as well, given I had so little of it and I was very sensitive to it in my body. And I had this incredible experience, this 2-hour therapy session, CTC therapy, which was so extraordinary. I walked in pretty cynical and walked out without this paralyzing fear of public speaking, without this feeling of not being good enough, without this desperate need to please my father and all these sorts of things. And then within 8 to 10 weeks of that, my business was born. So then I became a practitioner. So really, over the years, I've worn many different hats, but I've realised that it's really impossible to be a master of any of these things if you're trying to spread yourself too thinly. So most of my work time now is spent trying to blog, but really still working as a therapist. I see clients all over the world and face-to-face in Melbourne. And I also, as you know, have a large doTERRA community, essential oils community. So about 4.5 years ago, I started using essential oils as a means of trying to swap out toxicity, So where I can, I use essential oils to support my health before I necessarily might need to go to a pharmacy or a doctor. And that was an extraordinary journey for me in terms of supporting like emotional health, mental health and physical health. And then a couple of years ago, I thought, well, why aren't I speaking to my therapy clients about this stuff? Because I see clients for depression and eating disorders and anxiety and all sorts of stuff. So I pulled them into my business. And so now I educate people on a weekly basis around how to swap that stuff out, nasty stuff out for these beautiful plant-based remedies.
Amazing.
There you go. Sorry, it's very long-winded.
That's amazing. No, that's really good. Thank you. So I've got a couple of questions. So you made it sound like this complete life change from being corporate, and I know a lot of people who are in recruitment and they are that very, I wouldn't say high strung, but they're definitely a type A level. Like I think it takes a certain type of person to be in recruitment. Yeah. And then you've gone from that in Melbourne to living in Tasmania with your mum and dad.
At 39 years of age.
At 39 years of age, yeah. And you're making it sound like that was a really easy, so then I just cut out the toxicity and I did this. I imagine that, and like you said, there was a mind shift that happened, but was that an easy thing to do? Or was it something that you really had to work to getting your head around? Because I imagine, and I know I'm this sort of person, sometimes I just think that more is always better. And it takes a little while for me to get my head around. Sometimes more is just more. So when you've gone from doing all of this recruitment stuff to trying to heal, was it easy to carry that type A personality into the healing side of things? Or did you really need to just bring it down about 400 notches?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So I'll never forget. So when I went to Tassie, my doctor's in Melbourne, and we used to have bi-weekly catch-ups on the phone. And one day, and so the thing about type A personalities, as you probably know, is we're often, my psychologist defined us as sort of fast talk, fast speech. Fast walk, fast talk, right? People are always talking about either how quickly I speak or how quickly I walk. And
I'm
it is, you're right,
exactly
like
the
it's sort of a
same.
million miles an hour. Yeah. And I'll never forget when I was down in Tassie having a conversation with my doctor and feeling immensely frustrated about how bloody long it was taking to get better. Like, it was 4 to 5 years of being quite incapacitated. And he got really quite cross with me on the phone. I'll never forget it. He said, Amy, you must stop trying to control the healing of your own body. You have to, and because I just wanted to control it. I wanted to push it all off in the direction as I did with my business and everything else I do in my life. So probably there's a couple of things. So when I was finally diagnosed, which had been years in the making, a different specialist finally said to me, right, there's no question you have chronic fatigue syndrome. Excellent. It's been, I've got a diagnosis, fantastic. He did say that for some people they're never free of it, and I knew that could be the case for me. But when he told me that, on the one hand, there was this immense fear that possibly I would never get my life back. But on the other, and this is a much stronger feeling, was this sense that something amazing was going to happen. And it never left me. At no point when I was in Tassie did I have any bloody clue what I was going to do in my life. But when anyone said to me, so what are you going to do? What are you going to do? It was always the same. I don't know. But whatever it is, it's going to be amazing, because I could feel it. And so probably the biggest lesson, one of the biggest lessons for me being down in Tassie with sort of being really incapacitated, was this whole sense of letting go and just learning to trust that everything is exactly as it's meant to be. So for me, I think I've always pushed very hard for often the wrong reasons, had a great sense of determination, but not enough discipline to stop and to trust that things will just unfold. But with chronic fatigue, you don't have a choice. Like I just had to go down there and take each day as it comes, and with every mouthful and with every infrared sauna I had and every meditation, just trust that it will all start moving in the right direction. Yeah. The frustration with chronic fatigue, you don't have the energy to spare on frustration. Yeah. So it was just a letting go. Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. So
yeah.
Next question is around the CTC therapy. So it sounds super hippie woo-woo. Talk me through what that process is, and also it sounds like you're working with energy. How do you do that via Skype?
Yeah, fascinating. It is, and I totally get the woo-woo bit.
I love
oh my
woo-woo.
gosh,
I'm all about
woo-woo,
but just can you explain to people what that looks like? What would a session with you look like?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I'm a Reiki master, and so and just to preempt with this conversation, when I was in Tassie with no idea what I was going to do with my life, somebody said to me, "You've got to go out, drive half an hour out to the countryside, and go and see this woman, Diane. She's an incredible psychic." I was like, "Really?" And
can't
she
do
said,
any harm though.
"Do it."
I'm all about that shit, because I think can't do any harm. Completely non-invasive.
Nah,
take me there.
That's right. And that's exactly right. So I said, all right, she said, I promise you will not be disappointed. So off I went, walked in the door. This woman, as soon as I walked in, she goes, whoa, we've got quite the cynic here, haven't we? And I said, yep, it's true. We had this chat and she gave me all this information. Would you believe she said to me that social media is going to be the making of you? She said, she actually also she said to me that you said, you're going to be an alternative. Oh, lost you.
Sorry.
She said, you're right. Gust of wind. Yeah. She said to me, you're going to be an alternative therapist, don't you? And I said, no, that's bullshit is actually what I said. I said, alternative therapy. I said, I'm a recruiter. And she said, no, well, it's the case. Anyway, one thing led to another and here I am. So know that I've had to really open my mind to this sort of stuff. So with so I'm a Reiki master, and effectively, a lot of this stuff you've got to, and what I try and tell my clients is you've got to let go of the need to know half the time. Let go of the need to know how it could possibly work and trust that it does. I mean, ultimately it has to resonate with you or it just won't.
Yeah.
But with Reiki, there is, when you do what's called Reiki, you do Reiki 1 and Reiki 2. And when you do Reiki 2, it enables you to send distance healing. Yeah. So and this blew my brain when I did this stuff. So you learn to pick up on information from people wherever they are in the world. And it doesn't matter whether you're in this space with me or whether you're in Tassie or up in Queensland or even over in London. You learn an ability to send energy. And I won't even go into how that happens, but it goes through, sorry.
Do you need to be able to see people for that to happen, or can you just hear them?
No. So I used to see Reiki clients in Hobart. Like there's one client I used to see every month. And I would say to her at this particular time of the day, just go and lie in your bed. Just go and lie or get comfortable, lie on a couch. I'm going to be with you during that time for sort of half an hour. Then I would type up a report of everything that I picked up during that session and send it to her and send her healing. And if people are sensitive to this type of energy, they'll feel it. Even talking about this to me, who's someone who's really black and white, hello. I find it difficult to wrap my head around. Nevertheless, basically with the CTC session, so it's a combination of different therapies all rolled into one. So lots of people, I'm sure, have heard of EFT, emotional freedom technique, or tapping. Yeah, which is like acupuncture without the needles. Neuro-linguistic programming, which looks around mind mechanics and the words that we use, which is extraordinary. It's often used as like a sales technique in organisations. Hypnosis, but really I just use hypnosis to get you to a really blissed out state so that I can speak to your unconscious mind. And some Reiki. And what effectively I do is pull all of these different modalities into 1 2-hour session according to whatever it is that's going on for you. Ultimately, it is a beautiful, blissed out, relaxed experience. And what I'm trying to do during that session is get people's energy back from the past and all this crap that they've been carrying around since they were a child, that have, evolved into all these different patterns of behaviour, and get their energy from the future and all this fear of what they don't want, and the fear of everything going wrong and not having enough and whatever it might be, and bring their energy back to the present. And so what really happens is you get a clean slate. So the sorts of issues that I deal with often are things like paralyzing fears of public speaking, feelings of not being good enough, feelings of being stuck, the fear of never being enough, need to please parents, anger and guilt, and all this sort of stuff. I get so much amazing feedback from people wherever they are, whether it's face to face or worldwide, of just extraordinary things happening, because it is just like you kind of get to start again.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things that, again, can't do any harm. If you're feeling stuck or if you feel like something's not right, give it a crack. What's the worst that can happen? You're $100 down or something. Like
a little bit more than that, but yeah.
But really, like even when you think of it, like I feel the same about like, I don't know, any of those sort of alternative therapies. Take it for a spin. See what happens.
That's exactly right. But I think, Sian, it's important that I mention that, yes, take them for a spin. But what I often see as well, or hear about, are people who just want a really quick fix. Yeah. And nobody can fix us but us. Oh, I can help you and I can kickstart. But if you walk out of my therapy room and don't take on board any of the tips or tools we discuss, if you walk out of my therapy room and keep making the same decisions, and you will continue to go down exactly the same path, at the end of the day, it comes from us. So I think people need to be really mindful that if you want to change something significantly in your life, you've got to be ready to put in the work.
But I mean, it's no different to going to a nutritionist or a dietitian and getting a food plan and then walking straight out the door and into Macca's. If nothing changes, nothing changes. Yeah.
That's right. But you change one small thing and every single thing changes.
Absolutely.
So it does take a degree of responsibility, and it's something, I've had an experience with someone who came to see me and a month later said to me, not one thing's changed. And I spoke to her about what she'd done since our session. Did you do this homework? Did you do your vision board? Did you do this? Nah. Right. What did you expect? I'm not a miracle therapist. I can't take away anyone's free will or choice.
Yeah.
But it's significant. But again, it's something that really needs to resonate with you.
Yeah, and I think everyone needs to do their own work on themselves. So I guess in that vein, it sounds like you now spend a lot of time helping other people to
become more self-aware, become more emotionally intelligent, really tap into what's going on with them and have awareness around that so they can make those changes in their life. Do you still have a practitioner that you see to help you stay on track, or do you feel like you're kind of aware enough now that you can keep yourself on track?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I think often the therapists are probably some of the last people to actually go and seek therapy.
Absolutely.
But I'm very self-aware. There's no doubt about it. This stuff that I talk about in my therapy practice every day is one of the reasons I love to continue seeing clients, is not only, to be able to be in service to other people and to help change other people's lives, but is also because I'm forever reminding myself of what I need to be doing.
Yeah.
And so I'm fortunate, and then I can tap on myself. And, these therapies are really effective just for self-use, including Reiki. I go to bed every night and I give myself Reiki. So that's wonderful. But we all need help. So I have a wonderful therapist who's only a few kilometres from me, who is like an intuitive healer, Reiki master, amongst other things. And I love going to see her, and she just kind of resets me. Yeah. But she's the only, occasionally I see a Chinese medicine doctor who does some really weird shit.
Yep.
It's really fascinating 15 minutes of just all sorts of weird stuff. And he resets me, and that's wonderful. But we need it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I'd like to kind of change the tact of this conversation a little bit. I feel like it was probably about a month ago, you started on your Instagram stories doing your top tips for online dating. So I found myself every day going, I need to go and tune in and see what Amy's top tips for online dating are. Now, let me be clear. I have no interest in online dating. I am in a very happy relationship. But it was one of those things, it was really fascinating to hear your perspective on it. And I think as well, sometimes it's, you're living vicarious through other people who are online dating and stuff like that. I don't know. I just found it incredibly interesting. So why online dating? And has this been something that you have had a lot of experience with? And yeah, just help me understand.
Okay, so firstly, I will say I certainly didn't think I come with a lot of experience. Okay, I'm one of the very early adopters.
Okay,
so,
and what was your adoption of choice to begin with?
RSVP.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was back in the day. So I reckon it was probably 2003 or 4. Right? So that's quite some. It's like 16 years ago, is it not? Yeah, 15, 16 years ago. I remember at that time, online dating was just not something you spoke about. If you did, it was in secret. And you might slowly, oh my God, are you doing online dating as well? And it had such a stigma, such a negative stigma.
Yeah, very
so yeah, absolutely sociable. And it was an entirely different experience for me then as it would be now. And the reason for that, and that's something I've been thinking a lot about lately and really wanted to start sharing with people, was for me predominantly around mindset. And over the years, I have a partner now that I'll leave it there. I was going to elaborate, but I won't for the moment. So I have a partner now. However, over the years, and certainly over the last probably 3 to 4 years, it's evolved into this really wonderful experience. And just the number of beautiful friendships I now have in my life. And it's also just awakened me to a whole host of different relationship possibilities, which, that don't necessarily take a traditional course. And I think it's just taught me so much about myself. I'm nearly 47, and I was the girl at school who was, according to others, going to be the first to be married and have 3 kids and the picket fence and all those things. It never happened.
Yeah.
It's not that I haven't had children by choice. I just didn't ever meet the right guy, and I didn't want to do it on my own.
Yep.
And I also probably never anticipated that I'd get to this age and not be married.
Yeah.
And so I've had to reevaluate all of that. And for many years for me, there was this real sense of being a failure. I used to think, I wonder what my parents are thinking about. They probably think that I am, that there must be something wrong with me, or that I'm inherently difficult. And and I've come to realize that's not the case at all, that society has put so much pressure on us to conform, and led us to believe that only when you're in a monogamous, committed relationship are you in a successful relationship.
Yeah.
And I cannot tell you the thought and the learning and everything. I've invested so much time into podcasting around all this stuff as a means really of making myself more comfortable about my situation and reminding myself that, you know what, and I will be honest and say that I'm not in what you would call a traditional relationship at the moment, but it works beautifully for me. And so what's I guess has evolved is obviously I've met many women who are battling the online dating space and having a shocking time of it because of all the crap that I used to deal with and put up with. But in part, I think because my mental health was so poor back then. And so I find myself over the last couple of years, I found myself in so many conversations with men and women and realizing I've got so much to bring, so much to offer to help them change their perspective and actually have a really good time of it.
Yeah.
So on my website, I've spoken about relationships, and mindset obviously is a real key thing for me. And so I just thought one day, you know what? I'm just going to start putting it out there. I've got so much to offer around this stuff. I'm going to start talking about it on Insta stories with no idea whether it will take off or not.
Yeah.
And like you, Shan, actually, what was very interesting is it got immense engagement. But the people who wrote to me and gave me feedback about it were typically people in relationships who valued some of the tips irrespective. So it kind of morphed into this 15-tip series, of which I then meant to put on YouTube and do all sorts of things, but couldn't work it out how to do it, so I never did it. Yeah. But this morning, I've literally just finished typing it up into a blog post, and it's now on my website.
Amazing. So I think I was one of those people who, because I think regardless of if you were online dating or not, they were relevant to having any relationship. And that was a relationship with a partner, relationship with your family, relationship with your friends. A lot of the things you were sharing were things that were relevant to any relationship that you were going to be in. And I think that's sort of where it really resonated with me. So before I ask so many more questions that I have, why did you start online dating as opposed to what I suppose people would call, you know, the normal way of meeting people?
Yeah. So, I think, well, back in sort of 2003 or 4, I was probably doing a lot more bar hopping, but even still was finding it difficult to meet people that I felt that I had a great connection with. Yeah. And back then, what I was, low 30s, I'm sure I did it because I desperately felt that I wasn't enough unless I found a husband. Yeah. And so there was this rush and there was this attachment to the outcome to find this person that was going to complete me and find this person who's going to fix all the pain that I felt. And there was so much pain. Like I didn't realize that this, back in my early 30s, I had post-traumatic stress syndrome until I was diagnosed with it a few years later, but it kind of brought everything to the fore. It was like, for me, I got online, totally attached, as I said, to the outcome of finding someone who's going to heal me, who's going to free me, who's going to make me happy, and therefore make me a successful human being, so I'm in a relationship. And that's probably the way it was for me for many years. Even though I was still bar hopping and meeting people in bars, these days, it's changed markedly because I don't really feel like sitting in bars. I mean, I love sitting in a bar, but I don't feel like going and sitting in bars to meet blokes. And because I work from home in a female-dominated space, it's really, really difficult for me to meet guys. It is so difficult. And I'm not the social butterfly I used to be. I love my own time. I love my space. And so now, for me, over the last few years, it's been about connecting with quality humans without an attachment to any particular outcome. And that has been, so the best tip I've ever been given around my approach to online dating, which sits with me all the time, is you must set an intention that you're simply looking to meet quality humans.
Yeah.
Right? Let go of any attachment to any sort of outcome and be open to the possibility of what could come. And as soon as I started doing that, it actually started becoming really fun because I started meeting friends and people who could help me in my business and people who might just be there for intimacy, but this beautiful kind of journey of, wow, there's all these amazing people out there. And now that I've let go of all these boxes that I need to tick for this husband to be, I'm actually meeting all these really cool folk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's what so many people miss. Yeah.
Can I say something? You said that when you first sort of got into that, you had post-traumatic stress.
Yes.
What was that from?
So that was from a really, really nasty incident that I experienced when I was 25 in a social environment. I won't go into it because it's probably not that relevant. But I had an incident an incident where I was, in short, abused by a couple of people in a scenario where it was a packed environment where everybody kind of stood in a circle around me and nobody was coming to my support. But what it basically evolved was I ended up with terrible social phobia, paralyzing social phobia that many people would not have known about because I hid it very well and stayed home. Yeah. But what transpired from that, and again, this is a very different, it feels like a whole lifetime away, but as a result of that, what I used to do was kind of numb the pain and numb the fear. And so I was a party girl. For many, many years. I was the first to arrive and the last to leave. And I'm sure there are people that I went to university with now, if they've discovered what I did, would actually have a bit of a giggle. Shit, she's not quite the chick she used to be. And I'm absolutely not, but I used to just drown in alcohol and other vices to try and, soften whatever it was that was going on in my head.
Yeah.
So being diagnosed with it was a bloody relief. It's like, right, that's why I've been doing all that. That's why I've been behaving in that way, because I just didn't feel good enough and lots of other reasons.
Yeah. So I really love that whole idea of, not going into anything with an expectation. And like I said before, I think that's something we can take into any encounter that we have for any reason is not having, an expectation that it has to have this end result for it to be a successful interaction. Do you want to share a couple of your other favorite top tips? One of the ones that I always remember whenever I think about those things that you shared was don't yuck other people's yums. And
I love it.
That for me, that's just one that really, I don't really know why that connected with me so much, but it's one of those things that I feel like, yes, it's so true. People like things that I don't like, but it's okay. Like I don't have to like what they like. They don't have to like what I like.
Exactly. And I think that was probably, so that sticks with me as well. I think about that a lot. And I think that's just a great life tip for everybody. We've got no right to judge anybody based on their decisions. We've got no right to judge people based on what makes them happy or brings them joy.
Yeah.
And I think, so not yucking other people's nut yums, to give you an example, as I've written about on my blog post, a really good example is that we're all very different. So as I've already mentioned, Susan wants to have a monogamous relationship with one guy and settle down happily ever after for the rest of her days. Go, Susan. But, Joe over here, he wants to, or is in an ethically non-monogamous relationship with his partner, whereby they cohabitate and they are very, very happy, but they want to explore, let's say, for example, their sexuality with other people, but in a really open and ethically non-monogamous way. Now, Susan's like, what the? Oh my God, I mean, and this is where I think a lot of people get stuck. Instead of just going, you know what, no, that's not for me, and moving forward, they're like, on the attack and judging, and that's disgusting and that's whatever. But what has been a beautiful softening experience for me is just sitting back and just observing all these beautiful, different, wondrous sort of relationship types and what makes people tick, and not yucking their yums. It's like, well, no. And so now I would just say, no, thanks, but no thanks. Thanks, but no thanks.
And
leave it at that.
Was there any particular experience where you really had to check yourself into that, where, something happened where someone had, said that they liked something in particular, custard, and you're like, custard is disgusting. But, you really have you had any experiences where you're just really have to be very conscious of that?
I would have done years ago. So probably 4 or 5+ years ago, I would have done more so than I do now. Now I am very modern in my approach, very open and very modern in my approach. So it's very difficult to shock me now.
Yeah.
But back in the day, having said that, I have a very strict personal rule that I will never, ever be with another person at the expense of another person. So I would never be with a man at the expense of another woman. That is a strict personal rule. So I kind of do yuck yums in that respect. But I don't attack anyone for it. But as soon as I know that someone is in a relationship that is not non-monogamous, I'm out of there.
Yeah.
And I'm polite about it, but I'm out of there. But years ago, if someone had said to me, I'm in an open relationship, or I'm polyamorous, as an example, I have 2 partners, I would have been like, oh my God, he's weird, how crazy. Absolutely. I would have reacted in all sorts of different ways. Now I'm like, oh, how interesting. I wonder how that works. I'd like to talk to you about that. How do you do that? I'm so intrigued by the way people manage their relationships these days.
And I think that's an incredibly mature way to approach it, because I think for most of us, even if that's something that you don't want for yourself as a relationship, it's fascinating, isn't it? Like, I'm like, tell me about that. That is, I don't want to be in a relationship with you if that's your thing, but tell me about how that works. What does that look like? What does this person think about it? And what does she think about it? And how is everybody okay with this?
I know. It's fascinating. It is. And we might mention this, but we probably will talk about this shortly, but I research this stuff and podcast about this stuff every day, because I'm going to be doing my own podcast series on sex and relationships and dating and this sort of stuff, because I'm fascinated by it. Yeah. And what I can say is, those people who, as we're talking about non-monogamous stuff and polyamory as an example, is that one thing I have learned is they are better communicators than anybody I've ever met.
Yeah.
Because the way to make these sorts of scenarios work for you in a relationship is by being very honest and communicative and checking in on feelings. And the only way it's going to work is if people learn to communicate very well.
Yeah.
So all these little things I've learned along the way, like, it's just, I find it fascinating, all of it.
Yeah.
And I feel that a lot of relationships could be saved if only women would give themselves permission to feel whatever it is they feel. Like, if women would give themselves permission for interest's sake to sort of own their sexuality. Like, I think women get to a point where it's like, it's died, that's it, it's over for me. But also because they feel caught up in a situation that they can do nothing about. But what if they were allowed to own it and have an open conversation with someone and say, you know what, this is something I want to explore because I feel amazing when I explore this stuff. So the podcast series that I'm looking at doing is all around empowering women to own this. And I want to have the conversations around this stuff that people just don't want to talk about.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, back to some of your top tips for online dating. Is there any others that you think are really, really important? Obviously, go and read your blog post, and we will link.
Yeah, they can. I think the number one tip is checking in with your mental health first. Like, at the end of the day, and I'm a prime example of this, if you start online dating when you're not feeling good enough, when you don't feel worthy of a beautiful human being, then you are not going to have a good experience. And if you don't go into it with high standards and standards that you're happy to uphold, you're going to keep on putting up with the crap. And so the people that I speak to who have ongoing, bitter, frustrating, and really disappointing experiences are typically the people who aren't setting standards and adhering to them. But so I would say now, if you're in a shitty place, do some work first. Like, go off and see a healer, see a therapist, get to a point where you feel good enough and worthy of having a quality human in your life, and you will have a far better experience. So that's probably my number one tip. If you're in a shit place, you're going to have a shit experience. I truly believe it. And I keep getting, sorry. Oh, sorry. Switch away. Another tip. I think one of the tips that I really care about, and because I always try and be a decent human being in this space, in the dating space, is not to be a ghoster.
Yeah.
All of us have been ghosted. Ghosters are assholes, and we hate to be ghosted. We can be chatting for days, have this really happy experience, and then boom, you're unmatched without a word. Or you might go and have a couple of dates with somebody and it feel amazing and you're so excited, and then they refuse to return a text message. It sucks. It leaves you feeling terrible. So don't do it to somebody else. So my tip is just tell somebody, I'm really sorry, I'm not feeling the way I should be feeling. I think also don't allow yourself to be disrespected is another tip. So you've got to remember that your feelings matter. So you can't help it if you don't feel the right way, or if you don't feel a certain way towards somebody else. You can't help it. So if someone has a go at you for that, that is not your problem. People need to respect the way you feel, and you need to be able to back out politely and kindly without judgment. Yeah.
And so have you ever said thank you, but no thank you, don't come Monday to somebody, and them not react well to that?
Yeah.
Even though you've tried to be kind and you've tried to not hurt their feelings.
Yes.
What does that look like, and where to from there?
Okay. So there's a couple of things in this. What I've learned, and one of the tips that I'll go back a step. One of the tips I've learned with online dating is that you really do need to be careful to protect your privacy. Yeah. So for those of you listening to this who don't know about Kik, K-I-K, it's an anonymous app that you can pop onto your phone and message people without having to swap phone numbers. Personally, I like to use that because then you are protected, and then someone can't come at you with a barrage of text messages if you want to back out, and they don't have access to your private information. So that's something that I would always recommend. I did have an experience last year where it was the most awkward experience socially. I was out having a drink with somebody who was not the guy. He certainly wasn't the guy that he sort of portrayed himself to be, and it was such an awkward situation. And I couldn't sit there and continue and have another drink with him. And I had to politely tell him there and then, which often I think is a little bit harsh. I think often the way to go about this is to say, look, thanks so much, I've got to go now, and then perhaps message them later. But in this scenario, I just needed to get out of there and I didn't want the other drink. And I said, look, I'm really sorry, but I'm actually not feeling the way I should be feeling. I think I'd better go, but thanks so much. Oh my God. The next day, and that was it. And then I didn't contact him again because do I need to? I don't have to justify that. I'm just not feeling the way I was feeling. The next day, I caught a barrage of abuse. Barrage being, just not giving him a chance, and I should give people more of a go, and being too harsh, and all of these sorts of things, like really attacked me. And I'll tell you what, I was really, really, he turned into this nasty human, and I was so glad I hadn't given him my phone number. But I just kept reminding myself, I can't be made to feel bad for my feelings. I knew that me being there was not the right thing.
Yeah.
So I've learned now not to justify that to anybody. It's like, I'm not feeling it. I'm really sorry. Energy is what it is.
Yeah. And have you ever connected with somebody online and then turned up and you're like,
yeah,
your profile picture is Hugh Jackman. You, my friend, are not Hugh Jackman.
Yeah. So again, that ends up on my blog post, because that's selecting a couple of apps that are right for you and then putting your best foot forward. And this particular tip that I share, it's like, obviously get some decent photos on there. Do not put photos on there that are more than 1 to 2 years old, greater than 1 to 2 years old, I think. Do not put photos up there of you 5 to 10, if not more, kilos lighter, because you are guaranteed a very disappointing first date experience when you meet this person and they realise you are not that person. because it's dishonest. That's what troubles me the most, is that people, you know, who you, like, you think I'm bloody stupid?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. You are who you are, and you're beautiful however you are, but you need to own that and be honest with people online.
Yeah.
I have had this experience. My God, I've had this experience. I mean, I've gone to see a man with a full head of hair, judged on his photos, and then he hasn't got any hair, or he's got a wig, or you know, or he was grey in his photos and now he's got chocolate brown hair, and it just throws me. Or I get there and he's got a different name, which is quite common, actually. And all of it to me, so I'm a very honest person, and I don't like being deceived or lied to. I'm just, I understand the need for people's privacy and that sort of stuff. But if someone has deceived me, straight away, nah, that's not you, mate. You know, I mean, I don't necessarily say that, but it's instant cross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Can we do one more tip, and then I've got another question?
Yeah, one more tip. Okay, yes. So probably definitely keep date one simple. I think, oh my God, I've learned these lessons. So unless you have, like here, I'll give you an example. So the guy I'm seeing moved to Melbourne from Sydney, and we met online 5 weeks before he got here. And what ensued was this really beautiful journey of getting to know each other. So talking on the phone, we used to catch up for Friday night drinks on Skype. You know, by the time he got here, we knew each other really well. And so by the time I went to meet him for dinner, which was such an exciting moment, I knew that we were going to have an awful lot to talk about, and we were at least friends.
Yes.
And that's key for me. I want to feel when I go and meet someone for a first date that I'm kind of going to meet a friend, because that's all they could be, because I'm not going to meet my husband, because I'm not attached to the outcome, you know, not that I want a husband, but nonetheless. And so, but the general rule of thumb, I think, for anybody is take that pressure off yourself. Organise to have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. Even a walking the dog is a really good thing. Something you can actually, an activity you can do together, but make it an hour, so that no one is feeling awkward about needing to get out of there. That you're not trying to find excuses. Being stuck eating food with someone can be one of the most ghastly experiences. Yep. When there is nothing to be talked about, when there is no connection, it's anxiety. You know, it's awful. So even if you're super, super excited, just do it, make it a coffee. And oh my God, if your coffee turns into lunch and then turns into an all afternoon session of whatever that might be, maybe it's having the odd wine, or an all afternoon session.
Totally fine.
Then bingo, fantastic, go out and have dinner. But yeah, keep date one simple, be patient.
Oh, seriously, I've had friends who are like, you know, I'm going on this first date and we're going out to dinner. I'm like, are you a mental person? Why would you do that? You are trapped into an extended period of time at a table with somebody who you don't know if you're going to connect with. And you can't just say, just go into the toilet and never come back. Like,
well, the thing is, people do.
People do.
People do. Yeah. You know, and I guess, and another really quick tip, I think, is that it's really important that you go at your own pace.
Yeah. Like
with any relationship, really, like you choose how fast or slow you want to move. Don't feel pressured in going to meet someone before you're ready. Equally, learn to trust your intuition. You know, I think a lot of us don't give it enough credit. And so when the niggling feeling of, oh, I'm not sure, ultimately will become the holy God, why did I spend all my time putting up with that? You know, like tune into the way someone makes you feel, and you do know when it feels good.
Yeah, look, I'm one of those people who I have only ever been in one relationship with a person who I wasn't friends with for an extended period of time first. For me, I need that good, solid friendship. I need to know that you are a good human being before I actually want to be in a relationship with someone. So I'll tend to meet somebody, and it happened with John. I met John and I was like, you seem like a really nice guy, friend zone. You can just go and hop into the friend zone for a few months, because I really need to establish a friendship first, because for me, that's the solid foundation of a relationship. And there's one time in my life where I, you know, broke that rule, and it was the most fucking disastrous few months of my life. This guy was a narcissistic fucking sociopath, and it just made me kind of go, and this, my friends, is why I'm always friends with people first.
Yep. Yeah, because it can take months for you to get to, I mean, irrespective, it can take months to really fully understand somebody.
Yeah.
Having said that, you know, my previous boyfriend, the ex-boyfriend, or the current one, he and I met on Tinder and had probably 3 days of chats. And then I ended up, it was unbelievable, the connection. And I ended up, he was down in Torquay. I ended up driving down to Torquay for dinner at his house.
Yeah.
And it was the most amazing, as soon as I saw him. And as soon, it was just like, oh, like the energy was just amazing. And then off that went. I mean, it lasted a year and a half. A lot of that was great.
Yeah. And I don't mean to say that there's not that immediate connection with people that I've had a relationship with. But for me, I think the safe place is in knowing that there's a solid friendship behind that.
I agree.
So there might be an immediate connection with somebody, but for me, you're going in the friend zone because I need to feel safe first before anything else happens.
And I think certainly for those of you who are parents, that is just so key, isn't it? And so you don't have this, that feels to me like a much safer approach.
Yeah, but you know, that's been my approach, I think, ever since I have ever had relationships. And that's, like, and I'm not somebody who I'm a long-term relationship person. I don't I've never had like lots of random boyfriends. I've always been the sort of person I'm in a relationship and I'm in it until that falls to shit, and then
until that person goes into the freezer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So can I ask a question? Because you said something earlier, and totally fine if you want to just talk about ice cream flavors instead of the answer to this question. But
right.
But you mentioned before that the relationship you're in is not, you didn't say normal, but you said, I think, what was the word that you used?
Non-traditional.
Non-traditional. Can you explain to me what that means?
I'm trying to work out if I'd rather eat my chocolate brownie ice cream that's in the freezer.
That's totally fine. That's totally fine.
Yeah. So, okay. So I will share, to a degree. So going back to that notion of friendship, this is really key. The older I get, I think you might agree that it becomes, we learn the older we get that we don't need a lot of people in our life. But that amazing connections with people are very difficult to find. Well, at least I find that. I have a small group of very, very dear friends who are sort of all over, dotted in different states of Australia and overseas. And that's enough for me. I don't need a big group of mates. But what I've also learned is that because I've become so much more open-minded, when somebody comes along and there's a beautiful connection with that person, I want them in my life, and I find a way to keep them in my life. And so with this particular guy, I knew when I met him that he was quite non-traditional in that he didn't ever think that he would end up being with one woman for the rest of his life. And he doesn't feel personally that is a realistic notion. And to be honest with you, neither do I. And that's just where I've come to. And again, there's no judgment on anybody else, but I just don't. And so, the relationship we have is one of amazing friendship and mutual respect and incredible communication. And this is something I'll talk about on a podcast whereby, you know, we're now talking about this great podcast we've been listening to where they have this relationship counselor talks about having like a relationship agreement where you kind of come together in a determined period of time, which might be every 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 2 months. And you go through this agenda of everything in your life, you know, how your finances and your living scenario, how's your sex life, how are we feeling about this? And, you know, you come together and you go through this. It's like a meeting. It's like an AGM for your relationship. It's a couples board meeting. And what it means that you can save the stuff that you that perhaps is griping you, or that might ruin a beautiful dinner you're having together, but then to say, you know what, I'm not going to bring it up now. I'm just going to enjoy this beautiful time I have with this human, and we're going to talk about it then. And this sort of stuff is how our relationship is kind of working. And he and I am learning to consider, I want him in my life in some way, shape or form. I know that he doesn't want to be in a monogamous relationship. And so what I am coming to learn and to kind of navigate and negotiate with him is a world of open relationships where he has, or we have, the opportunity to meet other people if we so wish.
Yep.
Yeah.
Again, we can go to chocolate brownie ice cream. Has the instance come up where he has, because it sounds like you have incredible communication, and that's where the trust, I think, is, in that knowing there will be complete honesty and transparency. And at any point, if you decide you're not okay, then that's okay, because at least you know. But has an instance come up where there has been a situation where you would like to explore another relationship, or he has, and then how did you feel about that? Or do you not know how you will feel if that situation comes up?
Oh, gosh. I think anyone who's been in a similar scenario would say that it always comes with a whole host of very challenging feelings and emotions. Like, I mean, we're all human, and many of us will have feelings of insecurity, and many of us will not feel safe. And probably that's what I felt. And many of us will experience jealousy, but they're all human emotions that we're going to feel anyway. You know, I won't lie. There's been moments where I've thought, what the hell am I doing? I don't want to, you know, except I really adore this guy and I want him in my life, and I love what we have, and I love the freedom and the communication and all of it. Like, it's amazing. And, but it doesn't come without its challenges. And what it requires is incessant communication and checking back in. And at the end of the day, our agreement is that we are priority. What we have is priority, and that's what it comes back to. And how are you feeling? How am I feeling? And we check back in all the time. And but we are sort of but what matters between us is most significant, and we keep coming back to that. And Shan, it's not without its challenges, but every relationship is with its challenges.
Of course, they're just different. Like, everyone has their shit. It's just different shit. So do you think, though, if you were to meet somebody who did tick all of your boxes and wanted a monogamous relationship, would having this existing relationship stop you from actually being open to that? Or do you think that I mean, and hard to know until you're in that situation.
Yeah, it's a really good question.
You know how sometimes, and I notice it with people, you know, when they break up with a partner, but that person's still there, they're still spending time together, they might still be sleeping together, whatever, but then they're also, you know, dating and they're trying to meet somebody else. I feel like that thing that's still there, holding that emotional tie to them, makes it really difficult for something else to come to its full potential.
It certainly does. And that's probably another one of my tips as well, is making sure you are really ready to move on and make sure you're moving on for the right reasons.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people, I think, look for relationships or alternate relationships because they're trying to smother some pain or some grief or some sadness that they're feeling. And that they may need to close those doors and really do some self-work before they move forward. To be honest, I think at the moment, so my primary relationship is what matters to me most because of the beautiful friendship, and that's everything. It's so hard to find. I have never met a man that communicates like this one does, and the mutual respect and everything is just something that I would not let go lightly. In fairness to any other person that I was to meet, I would have to be open about that scenario. And if that person had great discomfort around it, it is what it is. For me, but it's a really good question. But if somebody did come along and ticked all the boxes and wanted all the bells and whistles, then I'm open, you know, everything is ever changing, isn't it? Like, you just never know. I think it's just about being open, and the more beautiful relationships I have in my life, the better in
Yeah.
some respects. Not that I want many, as I've said, but if somebody comes along that ticks boxes, then I'll consider it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have a podcast that you're going to start at some point in time, and everyone will just be following so they'll know when it's happening. And it's going to be around all of these topics. Are you doing that by yourself, or is you doing that with somebody else, or will you have guests? What does that look like?
Yeah, so sorry, I do keep getting messages. So it is coming soon, not as soon as I had anticipated. I'm doing it with a girlfriend. And really, so the podcast will be that our sort of target audience will probably be around, say, 35 to 50-year-old women. And the idea behind it is to have all the discussions that many people just don't want to talk about or can't talk about, you know, including online dating, but a lot around sexuality, a lot around exploring different types of relationships and how do they look. And really, I think, so I'm not quite sure. Look, I'm hoping it will probably take off in the next 1 to 2 months, but the idea of it is what we want to do is interview experts. They are going to be like bite-sized podcast pieces, 30 to 40 minutes, where we will bring in an expert around a certain area, and we want to then create actionable steps for people to use and take with them to make some positive change in their life and to empower them to make some significant change. We don't want it just to be, oh, that's an inspiring chat. Oh, great, that was really interesting. We want to give them actionable steps and give them some great resources and make it something that is going to really start changing lives. Yeah. So I'm massively excited about it. I will be honest, Shan, this is the first time I've ever spoken openly about my personal life in this way, and it is.
I told you before we got on the phone that I have this way of just shit coming out of my mouth before I can stop it.
Yeah, no, I just sort of, you know, it's great. I mean, I'm not, you know, I'm who I am, and anyway, but the point of that was some of these conversations will be challenging and confronting for many people. As an example, and I know this because probably a couple of months ago you might have seen a blog post I did about yoni mapping.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yoni mapping therapy. I had an amazing opportunity. I had a 3-hour session with a yoni mapping therapist who basically mapped my vulva, and you know, and I shared this experience. A lot of the.
I'm going to ask a question about that.
I know you are. I'm like, oh, that's a juicy question. Juicy being the operative word.
Yeah. Carry on. We'll get back to it.
So anyway, so basically, just for those that don't know anything about yoni mapping, so essentially it's an experience that many women might have if they have suffered something like sexual trauma, if they have trouble, if they aren't able to orgasm, if they have a lot of pain post-birth, if for whatever reason there is shame or negative feelings around this area. And it is an incredible experience whereby she sort of maps it. So people, and a lot of people are too ashamed to even look at it and they don't know what it does or what bits do what. And so she helps you understand all of this, and it's an amazing cathartic experience. Anyway, the point of the fact that I'm even talking about this is that I put it on Instagram, and within a day I lost 700, 800 followers. Purely because I shared that I'd had this experience. So I know that this kind of stuff is going to trigger people, and I know a lot of people, you know, will find it confronting and icky, and they will not be my people on this podcast. But really it's a matter now of trying to decide whether or not this community, my existing community, is one that I probably will start over, and then just invite people in as we build a community according to how it goes. We'll see. I have a feeling it will go very well. I think that I know from just doing the online dating series that I did, it was the most engagement I probably ever had since I set up my business.
Yeah.
People want to talk about this stuff.
Absolutely. And I think, I don't know if you've read Tim Ferriss's book, Tools of Titans, but he talks about...
No, I haven't. Yeah.
It's really, really good. But he talks about having 1,000 true fans. That's all you need is 1,000 true fans. So, you know, you look at these Instagram accounts, and yours is a sizable Instagram account. And they're great, and they might be the food people. But for this whole new venture, all you need is 1,000 true fans. They're the people who are engaged. They're the people who are connecting. They're the people who are actually sharing your stuff with other people, and they're your true audience. So I think, you know, it doesn't really, and Instagram is such a, you know, people are like, oh, you've got however many followers. They're not
It's irrelevant.
They're not 50,000
Yeah.
of my closest friends. Like,
No.
I appreciate them. I 100% appreciate those people, but don't mistake that for me having 50,000 best mates. I don't. Probably have 2 or 3 because I actually don't really like people.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's a funny old beast, that social media world. I lose probably 100 to 200 people a week. I've gone from 96,000 to nearly 85,000 in a year and a half. And it used to be something that really troubles me. And I even actually, after I did that yoni mapping post on Instagram, a woman said to me, she wrote on the post, I've been thinking about joining your oils community for some time now, but now I just feel like you're going off an entirely different tangent and I just don't feel like it's for me anymore. And I said, no problem. That's the beauty of social media. You know, you can follow who resonates with you. And but why am I talking about bloody yoni mapping? Is that an issue? Because I've spoken about women's health, women's sexual health, as though it's not something that should be spoken about. Shit.
Don't yuck other people's yums.
Don't yuck other people's yums. God.
And also, I think it's interesting, and I think the world of social media is quite interesting because, you know, that would not be the first time you've had somebody not like something that you've done and voice it vocally. But I think it's one of those things that it says a lot more about them than it does about you. And it takes a while to get to that point. But I don't even pay attention to how many followers I have. Like, someone will say, how many followers? I don't know. And I don't look at the ones that have left. I don't look at the ones that I've gained. I engage with the community that's there, and that's lovely. And thank you for being here. If you don't want to be here, that's cool. If you do want to come on and hang out, that's also cool. But I have honestly got no fucking idea how many followers I have at any given point in time, because for me, it doesn't change what I share or what I don't share. That is not relevant to me at all for what I am putting out in my community. Be there or don't, that's awesome. But whatever. That's a really good point. Owning who you are and your message and whatever it is you want to talk about is a lot more challenging than you think sometimes. I mean, you know, in all honesty, a lot of this stuff around relationships and sexuality and dating is something that I invest more time and energy into than anything else I do. Yeah.
But it's not, I can't suddenly go, right, I'm going to talk about sexuality now. It fascinates me more than anything, the whole world, and I'm so passionate about it and the learning I'm doing about it. But it is sometimes it needs to be approached with some degree of care and caution out of respect for the community that you have.
Totally. I'm just going to grab my phone charger because I think I'm about to die.
Right.
So I actually found that yoni mapping post you did. I'd never heard of it before, never ever heard of yoni mapping, had no idea what it was, just no clue. And I found myself, I've got to be honest with you, when I was first reading it, I felt uncomfortable, and not because...
Oh, good. I'm glad you're saying this.
Yeah. And not because I felt like it was something that you shouldn't have been talking about or anything like that. Just because I think it is such a taboo subject. Like you said, it's not something that people talk about. It's not something that people are open and honest about, you know, wanting to talk about their sexuality or anything like that. So I found myself reading it thinking, oh, I feel a little bit confronted now. Like, I feel a little bit fascinated. Like, this is so
exactly
fascinating.
Fascinated and intrigued.
Didn't even know this was a thing.
Yeah. So, but don't you feel that there should be, like, women have a right to better understand their anatomy and to embrace their sexuality? And there are so many women out there who, as an example, can't orgasm, full stop. And this yoni mapping therapist can help them enjoy an aspect of themselves that can bring immense pleasure, and who doesn't want to feel more immense pleasure? And it's not something to be ashamed of.
And seriously, is there a man out there who would be having sex if they couldn't orgasm? No. They wouldn't.
Well, exactly. So why should it be any different?
Exactly.
And I think all of this and this kind of self-exploration and better understanding your body and what it's capable of can be for many the most liberating experience and the most liberating journey. The self-confidence this sort of stuff brings when you get in greater touch with your body and what it can do is life-changing.
Yeah.
It really, really is. As over the years, I've become much more interested and passionate about all of this sort of stuff, passion being the operative word, and embraced my sexuality, it has just been immensely empowering. And I think particularly as an, middle-aged woman, embracing this and owning who you are in your skin and just loving you for who you are and everything your body is capable of is an amazing journey. And many don't get the opportunity. So I want to talk about it so that people actually, you know what? I don't need to be ashamed of that. I'm going to go and I'm going to learn how to do that, whatever it is.
Absolutely. But I think as well, the sexual side of a relationship is a very important side to any relationship. And if you're not enjoying doing it, you're not going to want to do it. So isn't that going to make anybody's relationship more enjoyable for both people if you're actually engaged in the process of being intimate with somebody?
Yeah, so assuming sexuality is something that's important to you, and it isn't important for a lot of people, I hope that for those people it's not important to, it's just because they haven't discovered their sexuality or they haven't found peace with it, or a way that doesn't bring about physical pain for them. But I think we're told that it's not okay to prioritize sex in a relationship. But you know what it is? For many people, it can be one of the most important things. Obviously, where there's friendship, that is vital. But sexuality for many people is the most important thing, and exploring that.
Yeah.
But the first thing we have to do is remove all the taboo and the shame around that.
Yeah.
And the more I immerse myself in all this, the more, I could sit here for hours and talk about this stuff and speak very, very plainly about it. But I'm so comfortable with it that I have to keep reminding myself that everybody else isn't.
But I think the only way to get comfortable with it is to hear it. And I think as well, perhaps it doesn't resonate with you straight away, or it's not something you want to sit down and talk to your best mate about straight away. But if there's interest or something fascinates you, then isn't it worth actually hearing someone else talk about it? Doesn't mean you have to talk about it, doesn't mean you have to do it. But hearing somebody else talk about it, it's just another way of learning, isn't it? And we all should learn about things that we're interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it just intrigue. It's just, even if it just brings about a speck of intrigue or a little bit of hope or something that makes people, it's the same for me over the years, just with the whole notion of open relationships and non-monogamy, it's because I've opened my mind to this stuff that I have a beautiful relationship in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That isn't what I anticipated it would be. And because of him, I'm going off an entirely different journey and also embracing all of this stuff that fascinates me. And so I hope for many people, even just reading online dating tips or listening to a podcast or whatever it is, that it just gives more women more hope that life can look very, very different if they choose it to. Yeah, choose it to be. Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you. I'm going to wrap this up there because I feel like I've taken enough of your time and sidelined you with way too many uninvited questions.
Yeah, that chocolate brownie ice cream. Oh, it was tempting. But thank you, Shan. Thank you. It's good. I'm got out of my comfort zone. It's really good.
Thank you for being so honest and being so open and willing to share. I will make sure that we link through to your online dating tips, your website, all of that sort of jazz below. And so
wonderful.
Being attacked by a plant. If people want to find you, I'll put your link to Facebook and Instagram and your website. And you can stay tuned for the Juicy podcast.
Yes, indeed they can. Thanks so much, Shan. It was fun.
I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.